head up and I'm going to be fine.
Wow.
But I mean, he really took charge of his situation, not in an obnoxious way or, you know, unpleasant way to alienate people, but he really took charge. I mean, very proud.
And I mean, a lot of you have seen Primal Fear if you haven't, to see Ed Norton and Richard Gere, by the way, but Edward Norton, in a performance that the same as Sean, a different kind of movie, but that same thing that Sean Penn did. You went, this guy you have to contend with for the rest of his life. He's going to probably be an actor, probably going to be a movie star. And the interesting thing was, here was a guy who went to New York, studied acting in the classical theater mode, and when I was preparing for tonight, I looked him up fully expecting that he would have some kind of New York credits, zip. And yet, he's this New York prepared, trained, classically trained actor who always had his eye on the movies. So because some of you are here, you're training in film classes, but you have your eye on the stage, fine. This idea that, you know, one is exclusive to the other, good training in this thing with people who care about whatever medium they're training you in can only lead, if you're capable of it, to your own diversity and your own ability to be able to do different things. And Ed Norton is a very good example, because I was surprised that there was no Broadway or off-Broadway credit. But he knew that's where he belonged to train, and the theater was the place for him to train, but he had his eye on the movies. And I want to point out, because sometimes we think, oh, you know, I live in LA, but I really live. No, just get what it is you need to make yourself great, and then start heading where it is you want to apply that greatness. And Ed Norton's a very good example of that. I wanted to mention, who's the next one? I wanted to mention this just because this came up the other day. I don't know why we were talking about Peter's, I know. On YouTube, you have to look up a thing on YouTube that says Peter Sellers as Richard III. Now, the reason, here's what happened. It's so worth it, because Peter Sellers was a great friend of John Lennon for some reason. And when the Beatles did their first television special, the only guest star they had was Peter Sellers. And at the time, there was a movie out of Richard III, a very stylized movie of Richard III with Sir Laurence Olivier, and all of England was either, you know, enraptured by this performance or making fun of it, and because it was pretty intense, this particular Richard III. So Peter Sellers, on the Beatles special, puts on the same wig as Laurence Olivier, and it's on YouTube. You must look it up. And he does the famous opening speech from Richard III, and it is without doubt the funniest thing to watch Peter Sellers, a genius in his own right, capture the core of another genius and make fun of it. It's really something to watch.
Oh, Sam, he does. I want to hold your hand.
Yes. He does. You're right. He does. I want to hold your hand as Richard III. Exactly right. No. It's been a hard day's night.
Hard day's night.
It's been a hard day's night. It's really extraordinary. You gotta watch it. But it brings me to, if anybody who wants to be in the movies and you haven't seen Peter Sellers in Being There, you just have to give up, because this guy knew more about working the camera and the angles and where the camera was and how to do it. Another theatrically trained actor, but that's an amazing performance.
Yeah, it is.
It's crucial that you, and it's also a totally fun movie. And Jack Warden is brilliant, and a number of people are brilliant. Shirley MacLaine is terrific, and it's yeah.
He didn't get an Academy Award or even a nomination because of the outtakes, the end of Being There.
Yeah.
Too goofy.
Too goofy, and also there were some things politically at the time in the picture that offended some folks, and he didn't get any of the recognition. But it's one of the more amazing, and he would get away with this thing of being totally realistic in film. He absolutely understood realistic filmmaking, but with this kind of theatrical thing, like the fellow in Glorious Bastards, who's doing a really theatrical performance inside of a movie. You know, it's great. Your turn. Have you got somebody?
Well, I mean, we better talk about Meryl Streep. I mean, she's sensational. I mean, just put her in the role. You're right. Coming from seeing Julia.
Yeah.
It's just phenomenal. You know, and just goes for it.
But also, the thing I want to say about Meryl is when I saw Julie and Julia, I mean, this woman has made many movies, very successfully, but you can tell she ain't phoning it in. She's doing her work. You know, everything in that performance, you know, she's got it spinning in her brain. You know, because there's a lot of people that get to a certain level and pretty soon they're just making a movie and, you know, they just show up and they get their millions and, you know, and they get a little late. They're fine. Jack Nicholson had a whole period where he was just like, you know, he would just show up and be Jack Nicholson and it would be good just because he's Jack Nicholson, but it wouldn't be that inspired Jack. She never does that. She never, even in shitball movies, she's made some that aren't the greatest. She's still, you know, doing her work on a level that is, again, it's that training. It's that, you know, that. Yeah. What's your favorite Meryl Streep moment besides whatever the most recent one?
God, the Deer Hunter, I still can picture her in the Deer Hunter. I love that movie and the work she did. She just called that young girl just completely. And I thought, you know, even though I didn't think it was a good movie, Sophie's Choice, her work was just, she's phenomenal. I mean, I think she should have been pulled back and down, but I didn't care much for the movie.
Well, she had to fill up a thin idea.
Yeah.
And
I thought, like, what's her name? The mother, the black woman.
Viola Davis. Viola Davis.
Oh, she was wonderful. Well, no, she was wonderful. That was the best scene in the movie between the two of them. I just wish Shanley would have pulled it back. It was kind of, for me, the Wicked Witch of the North. I just didn't think that was much better.
It's another very example of there are no small parts. You know, I mean, that woman made a career out of that movie. That movie will define the rest of her career. And it's one of the, I think, the values of what Terry pointed out, of just being not only educated by all this stuff that you can rent and see, but just steeped in it. Just to have, you know, that it's running through your mind, that you're talking to other people, that you're pointing out to other folks when you see something or a performance, and especially some of these older things, because you know who your friends are that would watch The Fugitive kind, and other people not so much. But to just let this soak in, this sort of rich heritage that you guys are a part of and want to be a bigger part of, the more that heritage is rolling around in you, the more expressive you are of it, and the more your performances come from all kinds of influences. Because I think that's what's extraordinary. Anna Magnani, they once asked her about, you know, what were her great influences, and she said that when she was a little girl, the first movie she ever saw, which was already old by the time, but at the local theater, they played this silent version of a little piece of film that Sarah Bernhardt, who you may know is a very famous French actress, and Sarah Bernhardt lived long enough to make very early small silent movies. They weren't whole big movies. But Magnani had seen that, and what she said in this quote was, "I thought she was silly, but I wanted to do it." And because it is, I mean, Bernhardt was, you know, this kind of, but she was really good at it, and that was the acting style of the day. And Magnani realized, because you'll have the same experience, you'll look at some of this old stuff and you go, oh, come on, we can't act like that anymore. You just have to say, what if I were making a movie in 1954, like, you know, how would I act then? What would be the style? And just extrapolate then, what would Magnani be doing in modern movies?